And the journalist right across this story, breaking many aspects of the story, is Colm Keys of the Irish Independent, who is with us. Thanks for the time, Colm.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Just a timeline on this. And there's been so much talk about the Burns email. We're going to tell people what's in the email in this conversation. But people, I think it's fair to assume, generally au fait with the Rory Gallagher situation. Left the Derry job in 23 on foot of those allegations on Facebook by his wife. They are separated, his wife Nicola. And since then has been very much open for a return to top-level management. He's obviously working away with Cordofa and was working with them in 23. And news came through on Monday that at some stage in the preceding days, Naas had put him as part of their backroom team. So had Naas finalised that appointment at that stage, or it was just a foot?
I think it was probably more a foot. But at some stage, Joe, for an appointment like that, when you are bringing a coach down from Ulster, Rory Gallagher is in the Skillen base now, I believe. When you're bringing a coach down like that, there's a bit of logistics around that. So that had to be discussed with officials. That had to be in the domain of Naas GAA, obviously, to make an appointment like that. My understanding was the players were informed of this. I think it was Friday night, and word began to circulate around Kildare on Saturday, and obviously became national news on national sports news on Sunday morning. And quite quickly, it seems the intervention by the GAA president, Jarlath Burns, followed that. And by Sunday evening, the Naas executive had met and had decided to take a U-turn on this. Now, whether that U-turn was precipitated by Jarlath Burns' email, I suspect it probably helped in some regard, maybe to frame things, given what he put in the email. But I would think that by then there was some fallout, some considerable fallout through Naas. And obviously, you can sense that on social media, but I think in person too, there would have been quite a deal of it as well. So Naas may well have arrived at this decision without any contact from the GAA president.
Your understanding is there was a phone conversation before the email between Burns and members of the Naas executive, or a member anyway?
There looks to have been some phone contact, and then his thoughts were put in writing after that and sent to one of the officials of Naas GAA, one in particular.
You have the email. Can you give us a sense what Jarlath Burns said?
Yeah, this says obviously BBC have published some of this, and it is now in circulation. Rory Gallagher also caught sight of it, but in that it is certainly not a cease and desist letter, that may have been the impression that Jarlath Burns came down heavy on Naas and said, you cannot do this. He most certainly did not say that. And in the email, he clearly points to the club's autonomy. However, he said he wanted to give us perspective. So he goes through his congratulates Naas on their remarkable year. They're obviously the four in a row senior football champions. They're hurling champions. And he describes them as an exemplary model of how a club can thrive both on and off the field. And there's quite a bit about this as well, your emphasis on Irish culture and integration. He goes through all those steps. The development of hurling is inspiring, and it's clear that other clubs look to Naas as a beacon of best practice in coaching, governance, and community engagement. And he says, however, I'm writing to you today with a sense of concern following the media reports this morning regarding the potential appointment of Rory Gallagher as a coach at Naas GAA. While I fully respect the autonomy of individual clubs in making their own decisions, I feel compelled to share my perspective on this matter, given the potential implications for Naas GAA and the wider association. So he's writing this out of concern for what could potentially happen, and probably was happening with the fallout from this. And obviously, people in Naas and up and down the country too are somewhat divided on this. There's certainly not unanimity about this. Some people believe he should be allowed to go on, and there is coach teams, and he is allowed to coach teams. But obviously, there has been contact here, and an effort, and it looks like a successful effort to guide Naas in a different direction. So to continue, then he makes his point about the Game Changer initiative, which was launched in November 20, just a couple of months back, and that's a project in conjunction with. It's a project in conjunction with White Ribbon and Ruhama, two bodies, and it seeks to use the powerful the powerful influence of Gaelic games to challenge the social and cultural norms that contribute to domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. And at its core, the initiative aims to drive positive behaviour change and foster an environment of respect, inclusion and equality, both within our clubs and across society. And he, again, frames Naas as a prominent club and the unique responsibility to lead by example. And then he gets to Rory Gallagher, and given the allegations that have been made public, and allegations we should stress at this point, Joe, and in his statement issued today, he categorically denies those allegations. And that's probably a step up from where he was, in that when the allegations were denied on his behalf by his legal representatives, Phoenix Law, last September, when a statement was issued on his behalf. This time, the allegation is categorically denied in his own words. So there is a distinction there, and that moves that on. But anyway, Jarlath Burns is referencing the allegations that have been made public, and he suggests that they could risk undermining the principles of this Game Changer initiative and the positive work being done across the GAA to address issues of respect and inclusion. And while Rory Gallagher has publicly stated that no charges were brought against him, the controversy surrounding his personal life has created significant division and concern within the wider GAA community. And that's something in the statement that Rory Gallagher has taken issue with, those particular words, and they were set out in italics in Rory Gallagher's statement. So Jarlath Burns goes through a number of factors that could have the far-reaching consequences: division within the club, damage to reputation of Naas as a club held to the highest standards, conflict with values. The decision could be perceived as being at odds with the values of respect, inclusion and equality that the GAA has worked so hard to promote. And again, the Game Changer initiative is referenced, and also impact on younger members, that it could send out a confusing message. So he urges the officers to carefully consider the broader implications of the appointment. Naas is a club that others look to for guidance and inspiration, and praises the leadership, and Naas very, very much reiterates that again. And he also stresses he has no authority to dictate club decisions, but I do have a responsibility to advocate for what I believe is in the best interests of the association and its members. So he suggests that by choosing not to proceed with this appointment, you will be making a statement about the principles that define Naas GAA and their commitment, reinforcing the commitment to inclusivity, respect and community cohesion. So that's all stated. It goes on another bit again about the club and wishing them well and all of that. So it isn't a cease and desist, but it's a clear nudge in a particular direction, and offering a perspective. But he does stress he doesn't have the authority, and that they do have the autonomy to arrive at whatever decision they arrived at.
Okay. So it's a very measured but compelling case. Naas obviously paid heed to it. It's hard not to draw. I mean, we can butcher cause and effect sometimes, but it's hard not to draw a line from that email landing to the decision to make a U-turn on the appointment of Gallagher. So that has played out over the last 24, 48 hours. And then today in the paper, and people can see it online more, so it'll be in the paper tomorrow, Colm, you heard from Rory Gallagher's statement from Gallagher. I suppose that the headline aspect to it I mentioned is that he says he feels he'd be left with no alternative but to pursue legal action if Jarlath Burns did not formally withdraw the contents of the correspondence and retract them indeed, which will be a significant ask for Burns to retract them. So there may well be a legal situation here if Gallagher follows through on that threat. But there's more besides in his statement.
Yeah, obviously he obviously, as I said, he has refuted the allegations. He has pointed out that the PPS in Northern Ireland has twice investigated this and have twice come up with a decision that he hasn't a case to answer. So that was part of his original statement back in May 2023, the week of the Ulster final, and he has doubled down on that, and he has also made reference to the fact that he has custody of his children too out of this situation. So he goes through a lot of that detail. He pretty much makes it clear that he feels Jarlath Burns, as president of the GAA, has overstepped the mark here in trying to influence a club in the way that he has set it out. Rory Gallagher has seen the email, obviously, and this is his response to it. And
not for the first time, we should add. Regrettably, whilst this is the first time Mr. Burns' actions have been made public, this is not the first time I've been informed that he's taken matters into his own hands with respect to me and my family life.
But it's the first time it's probably become public, in that there is an email, and obviously that email now is in circulation. It's the first time it became public. You can only surmise that perhaps around the Derry appointment there may have been some effort to maybe again make the same case to suggest, well, you have the right to do it, and they do have the right to do it, and that was established obviously by the Disputes Resolution Authority last February, which found in Rory Gallagher's favour too, after he had been temporarily debarred by Ulster GAA. So they do have that right, but Jarlath Burns with Naas is offering a different perspective on this, and it may be the case. Again, no evidence to this, no evidence. There is not a paper trail, as far as I'm aware of, in Derry for this, but that may be what he's referencing, that he was understood to be very close to getting the Derry job at some stage last summer, after Mickey Hart had resigned.
If the short answer to this is we don't know, then that's absolutely fine and we'll move on. I know the GAA have been approached for comment, and it's no comment at the moment. Do we have any sense or understanding as to the extent to which Jarlath Burns sent this email with or without consultation of the Croke Park GAA executive? Was this a solo run on Burns's part, or do we know if he sat down with the other key members of the GAA executive and said, I'm thinking of sending this email, are you with me? Do I have the thumbs up to do it? Do we know?
I would think he would have consulted some of those close to him on this, Joe. I don't think he would have just sat down and banged out an email like that. I think he considered this. He would have run that by, can't say whether it would be Croke Park staff or would it be officers somewhere in the country, but he would have sounding boards for this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he would have, someone in his position would run that by. So. They would have cancelled.
Half the reason I ask is because it seems like a relatively quick turnaround. Media reports Sunday morning, email by Sunday. I mean, he acted fast here.
I have to say, I'd like to be able to produce copy at that speed all the time, Joe. It was quite quick. If you're talking Sunday afternoon, from that becoming national news, he may have had awareness of it on Saturday too, because it was circulating in local media.
Yeah.
On Saturday too, I believe in Kildare. But yes, it's a quick turnaround. But I suppose Jarlath Burns is conscious of what is happening in the GAA and how people look at it and how they react to it, and that may well be part of this too.
Yeah. One of the issues to be discussed here, or maybe even the criticisms, a criticism of Burns, indeed it's one that Gallagher himself makes in the statement, is that you've overstepped the mark here, Jarlath Burns.
Yeah.
And I think anybody can't but note the seriousness of the allegations. They can't but respect the fact that Jarlath Burns in his own email talks about feeling compelled to make a stand, and may well applaud that compulsion. It comes from a very, very good place. But there may well be the discussion point, well, all that said, you can't really be the arbiter of who gets to partake in Gaelic games or not. There's a court of public opinion. There's the legal process. Gallagher had navigated the legal process. The court of public opinion, harder to pin down, but certainly those in Naas felt he was worthy of appointment. It's not the place for the GAA president, who's only there for, a short spell, relatively speaking, to be almost self-appointed arbiter and decide who gets in and who doesn't. That's the big talking point out of this.
It is, but he is president of the GAA. He should be able to communicate with all units of the association. We see the president as, in charge of, for those 3 years, of the secretariat in Croke Park, the committee at committee level. But he has contact with counties all the time, and he has contact with clubs all the time. Clubs will very easily contact the president of the day to come to dinner dances, to launch strategic reports and all of that engagement. So the engagement all the time is two-way. And in this regard, he saw a perceived problem. He saw fallout, and he, as you said, felt compelled. Is it overreaching? Well, he is the president of the association. He should have that entitlement to offer a view directly. That view does not have to be taken on board. Some people would say, some would say, well, the president writes you a letter or makes communication with you, and that's that. You can't really turn away. But you can make your own decision and say, no, we're happy with this and we're comfortable with it. I suspect by that stage anyway, Naas weren't comfortable. But you made a point, and Rory Gallagher references due process in his statement on a couple of occasions, and he feels, and there is the court of law and there is the court of public opinion, and they're two completely different spheres on this.
Yeah, they are. It's a subtle point. In that email that Burns writes, you have it there. Does he say, I felt compelled? The reason I ask is because Gallagher here in his statement, and the way this has been reported and talked about, is not really Gallagher versus the GAA, it's Gallagher versus Burns. And even Gallagher talks about it in terms of Jarlath Burns, not GAA Inc. Does Burns in his statement say, on behalf of the GAA, we feel compelled, or is it more of a I felt compelled?
Well, he says I feel compelled in it, Joe.
I know I'm nitpicking there, but
he doesn't feel compelled as the former Armagh midfielder or the former chairman of the standing committee. He feels compelled as GAA president.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just
at the top of the apex. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any personal element to this. It may be felt, obviously, and it is felt by Rory Gallagher, but I think he's doing it on behalf of the association he leads and feels a responsibility.
I put it to you in a different point well made. I put it in a different way. Do you suspect Larry McCarthy would have sent the same email?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Nor do I.
I'm not sure how many presidents of the past would have sent that. That's not to say that interventions have this, to say it's unprecedented. It's maybe unprecedented for a topic of this nature, but interventions and direct contact would have happened in the past. Again, no knowledge of it happening on this topic at this level like that. That's not to say that it didn't happen. There may be cases that we are not aware of, and people will say, well, why didn't Jarlath Burns, why doesn't he intervene here or there or here or there? And we know the specific cases that are being referenced, but we don't know that. We don't know for sure. We know for sure here in this particular case. There's a suspicion now about Derry because Rory Gallagher has stated that. The other cases, he may well have intervened. He may well have made contact in other cases, and he may have not got the reaction. We don't know.
I don't know. It's funny. There's a degree of speculation here because it's interesting. Your mind jumped to the Derry vacancy, and actually my mind jumped to, I wonder, have Corduff received and rebuffed representations? And who knows? It may well be both. It may well be none.
I don't think Corduff did get representations from Croke Park. There may have been an inquiry from Ulster. But Corduff is probably a different case, and it's a vastly different case to our situation to Naas. And Corduff is a small club; it's quite contained. The team manager is Seamus McEnany, the former Monaghan manager, who has a long-standing relationship and loyalty with Rory Gallagher. He had him in coaching on and off for quite a few years, and he would be very independent-minded anyway, and unlikely as team manager, and he has been chairman, and a lot of his family are involved. he'd be unlikely to yield in that regard to any overtures. I would say he's been in through enough crisis himself to realise he would be to see that out. So I don't think there has been contact from Corduff, and I suspect they would know the answer if there was.
Yeah, I think one of the more long-term consequences of this, for better or worse, is that now for any future case like this in the GAA, the question will go straight into the president. Have you been in touch with that club? Have you been in touch with that county? And they can say no comment, or they can say yes, or they can say no. But suddenly I think a silence will have more significance than before this moment. In that sense, it's a very significant development, very significant intervention on Burns's part. And his future presidents may not thank him for it, but I think that is a consequence of it.
And future presidents may not go down this road. And even in the remaining time of his term, I don't even know will he speak to outline on this, or he would see this. I would imagine he would see this as a private matter between him and the club that may not have been designed for public consumption. But having said that, I think he would know that once he puts it down on an email, and that email goes into a big club like Naas, it's going to circulate. And I don't think he would have any regret about that. In fact, I think he may even be quite content that it's out there that he was acting on this and wanted to be seen to be acting on this. And this may put down a marker for the future in terms of appointments and just the whole business around appointments, to make sure that they are right and that they reflect right and reflect those values that he spoke about.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding that, again, goes back to the point that Rory Gallagher is clear from 2 investigations. He's clear from a DRA panel who have cleared him to go and manage again. So he has those things in his favour.
Clear but not clear is the quandary he finds himself in. Clear by the PPS, clear by the DRA, not clear in the eyes of the president. So I guess the final question is, where do you think this leaves Rory Gallagher's viability as an appointment to a club or even an inter-county side in the short to medium term, Colm?
I think it leaves it difficult. There's no doubt about that. But at some stage in the future, he will. Some club will weather the storm. I'd be sure of that, and will want to avail of his services. And he's quite keen, and they will. As I said, there will be a storm about it, no matter where. And even after this, an even greater one, perhaps. But I think that's something that he's prepared for. And if there's another club, apart from Corduff, my understanding is he was close to another appointment in Derry with a club last year as well.
Right.
But it fell through at the last minute. I think it's more likely to happen in somewhere like Derry, where they have been used to him as their inter-county manager. In time, it may take more time. But I do think he will, at some stage, he will get back on the line. I would think he would in time, but it may take another year to a few years.
Colm Keys, thanks, Colm.
Thanks, Joe.